Hello and welcome to BBC Parliament's coverage of UKIP's annual conference from Southport. UKIP leader Nigel Farage made his keynote speech to conference. Mr Farage announced that he intends to stand down as leader of UKIP to focus on gaining a seat at Westminster. He will continue to lead the party's MEPs, but said leading the domestic party as well was too much. Mr Farage plans to take on Commons Speaker John Bercow in Buckingham.
Well, Mr Chairman, ladies and gentlemen, good morning everybody. Now, I know that some parts of my speech today will not necessarily come as a total surprise to you, as one or two things have been flagged up in the media over the course of the last couple of days. So I've been doing my very best to keep you on your toes. But I know that our chairman, Paul, is very keen that we don't repeat the mistake of 2004. We'd done well in the European elections, and it's our chairman's opinion that we spent too much time celebrating after that, rather than getting on with the job. Now, I'm not averse to the odd celebration myself, and I just think that we ought for a moment to remind ourselves that we, the UK Independence Party, a party that's only been founded for 15 years, in a national election across the entire United Kingdom, came second and beat the Labour government into third place. It really was an amazing achievement, because remember, earlier this year we were being written off, weren't we? The newspapers said that we were a busted flush, that we'd be lucky to struggle back with 2 or 3 seats. The newspapers said the BNP would sweep the board and they would pick up the protest vote. Well, it didn't happen like that, did it? Because in the middle of that campaign, the Daily Telegraph launched their great expose of the expenses scandal. And in the short term, that scandal helped us, because people who just about had enough of politics and politicians perhaps made the final journey. But you know, really, the big frustration with the campaign, despite the result, is that we did not manage to have a proper national debate about the European question, because the expenses scandal overshadowed everything. There was no real scrutiny of the Labour Party. It wasn't really pointed out to people that Gordon Brown had broken a promise, a specific manifesto pledge. It wasn't revealed in the campaign publicly that the Liberal Democrats' position on Europe is totally absurd, contradictory, and just about the most dishonest thing I've ever come across in my life. And perhaps most disappointingly of all, we had the Conservative Party not really being tested on "we will not let matters rest there." What does it mean, for goodness sake? And they weren't quizzed on it. The only time they were was when William Hague was on Newsnight on the Tuesday of election week, and Paxman was asking him the questions, asking him what does it actually mean, and Hague looked so uncomfortable, I thought he was going to get out of his chair in the studio in York and walk out. He couldn't answer the question. We didn't have that national debate. I suspect, ladies and gentlemen, if we'd had that national debate, we would have done even better than we did. But there were 1 or 2 moments in the campaign that I particularly enjoyed. And I think some of the support that we picked up says a lot about this party and a lot about the credibility of this party. And for those that were there, we launched the campaign at the end of April in Exeter, and appearing on the platform for us for the first time, and I think giving this party a massive boost, was Stuart Wheeler, which was wonderful. Absolutely wonderful. He, of course, was expelled from the Tory party for doing it, and at the end of the campaign we had Lord Calmes, Stanley Calmes, coming out and backing us. Again, wonderful credibility, and I especially enjoyed Lord Tebbett's intervention in the campaign when he managed not quite to get expelled from the Conservative Party, but he went as far as he could. You know, we must remember that 2.5 million people have given us their trust and have sent us to the European Parliament. And I think we should be honest and we should say that from 2004 we perhaps let some people down. We had a couple of MEPs that let us down, and the electorate have given us a second chance, and we must hold faith with those people that went out and voted for us. And we've got a job to do over there, and we've got a job to do over here. And I'm pleased to say that we have put together a group in the European Parliament, the Europe of Freedom and Democracy group, and it is the only real Eurosceptic group in the European Parliament. I will explain. When we took our seats again on July the 14th, Bastille Day, but I'm sure there was no reason behind that at all. When we took our seats in the Parliament, I was somewhat bewildered to find that my new seat was on the front bench, seat number 20, and that sitting in seat number 21 was Mr. Barroso. So it really is going to be up close and personal, isn't it, for the next few years? We had a little bit of fun. I turned up with the Union Jack flag and plonked it on my desk, and Mr. Barroso made an intervention and plonked an EU flag on his desk, and I'll be taking a Portuguese flag for him next week. But sitting next to me on that first day was the leader of another group in the European Parliament, the new Conservative group in the European Parliament, one Mr. Timothy Kirkhope. And we've heard much about their breakaway from the EPP, and that they're trying to tell the British electorate, vote for us because we're really Eurosceptic. As we walked in, the President of the Parliament came to the podium, and what did they do? Well, you know what they did. They played the European anthem, didn't they? And so up they got. Everybody absolutely ramrod straight. As good an illustration that this is the new nationalism as I've ever seen. I didn't get up. I didn't get up. I crossed my arms and shouted very loudly, I thought you dropped the flag and the anthem when you changed it from the Constitution to the Lisbon Treaty. And so the UKIPers sat there. But it was the performance of Timothy Kirkhope, the leader of the Conservative group, that amused me most. He stood there in a crab-like fashion, neither up nor down. Hoping that nobody would notice. Now, sitting next to him, I gave him some words of, well, let's say it, encouragement. I won't repeat exactly what I said to him at the time. And in the end, he did the decent thing and stood to attention with all the rest of them. And by the next morning, he'd been deposed by his own group, and I had a Polish gentleman sitting next to me. So we are going to be the only real Eurosceptic group in that Parliament, and we've got some important jobs to do. And the first one is the battle in Ireland. The referendum in Ireland really matters. It is, of course, an affront to the Irish people and to democracy that they should be told that their first result simply wasn't good enough. But there's going to be a referendum on the 2nd of October. Now, in the first Irish referendum, the group that we were in played a significant role. We put together literature, we sent it out round to the houses in Ireland, and although Declan Ganley got much of the publicity as being the leader of the No campaign, what particularly pleased me was the day after the Irish had voted no, the Taoiseach, Brian Cowan, got up in the Dáil and said that Nigel Farage and a gang of extremists in Strasbourg have subverted the democratic process in Ireland. What is happening in Ireland today, ladies and gentlemen, is monstrous. The Yes campaign have unlimited money. The Irish government have been busy buying off any potential political opponents. We have, as we speak, 80 employees of the European Commission and the European Parliament touring sixth forms, colleges and universities in Ireland, telling them all to vote yes. It is pretty clear that the broadcasting rules in Ireland, which say that in a referendum both sides should get equal treatment, it's pretty clear they've been chucked aside. So we are going to do something in our group. with the support of people like Timo from Finland that you heard from earlier on today, we are doing something in our group to redress the balance. And we have to. This idea that somehow UKIP is this little insular, Little England party could not be further from the truth. Of course we want self-government for our country, but we also want it for the free countries of the rest of Europe too.